Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Inside NASCAR. We're in sunny California at the brand new California Speedway. Roger Penske and his folks have put together one of the finest speedways I've ever seen. It is fan-friendly. It is competitor-friendly. Everywhere you look, it is magnificent. And they'll run the California 500 presented by Napa here this afternoon for the NASCAR Winston Cup drivers. And Joe Nemechek will lead them from the pole, his first ever Busch pole in NASCAR Winston Cup competition. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series ran last night in Bristol, Tennessee. And Stephanie Boyd-Durner is in our studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. She'll take a look back at that race and preview today's race. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, Ned, and good morning, everyone. Well, for the second time this season, the Winston Cup Series gets to tackle a brand new racetrack. First, it was the Texas Motor Speedway, but today the new California Speedway is in the spotlight. Coming up next, we'll fill you in on all the action heading into the first ever California 500. Plus, here's a look at what else is ahead in this 1 hour of Inside NASCAR. For the first time in nearly a decade, Winston Cup Racing heads back to Southern California this weekend. The California 500 is the brainchild of Roger Penske, and Ned Jarrett will have part one of his conversation with this motorsports mogul. Jack Roush has made a career out of his love for the automobile, but an even deeper love is his passion for flying. The multi-team owner gives us a first-hand look at his collection of airplanes. These stories and much more coming up on Inside NASCAR.
Inside NASCAR is brought to you by Milwaukee's Best. When you're looking for a different breed of beer, unleash the beast. Milwaukee's Best.
It's not often that a driver gets to wipe the slate clean, but today it's a fresh start for every driver in the field for the inaugural California 500. It's the first Winston Cup race in that state in nearly a decade, so we sent both Phil Wurz and Tyler Potter along to get us up to speed. Let's start things off with Phil.
Thanks, Stephanie. You know, we're just a few hours away from the start of the inaugural California 500 presented by Napa. And as Ned said earlier, Joe Nemechek will be on the pole for the inaugural race. Tyler Potter will be along in just a moment to talk to the pilot of the number 42 car. But first, here are some of the headlines making news at the brand spanking new California Speedway. On Friday, the official pace car for the inaugural event was unveiled by Greg Penske and some folks from Revell. It's a slick red and yellow Pontiac Grand Prix, and what's really neat about it is that 10-year-old Nate Jeffries Jr. from Chicago, who's a guest of Power Rangers and Jeremy Mayfield this weekend, will be in the pace car to start this race. Jeffries will be the youngest person in Winston Cup history to pace the field. In the market for a Winston Cup team, well, Jeff Bodine's team is up for sale. Bodine has been talking with a couple of prospective buyers, including the newly formed Joe Washington Julius Irving Racing Group. Apparently, the offer includes a 3-year contract where Bodine would serve as driver. The driver of the QVC Ford hopes to have something finalized in time for the Pepsi 400 in Daytona. Well, there's a new crew chief for the number 4 team. Out is Tim Brewer, and in right now is longtime crew member Robert Larkin. Sterling Marlin's average finish over the last 8 races has been 23rd, and his last win came in last year's Pepsi 400, a span of 30 races. Brewer has been commuting from Charlotte to the number 4 shop in Abington, Virginia, and it's reported the split was mutually decided. Meanwhile, the driver of the 99 Exide Ford is feeling a little better after his mishap at Michigan in practice last weekend. Burton told me his back is a little sore, but is ready to race today. Burton is one of the few drivers who tested here in May, and he says the track should see a couple of grooves for this race, making for some exciting 2- and 3-wide racing.
If the track gets cleaned off and the second groove has good bite to it, then you will. If the track upper groove doesn't get cleaned off, then you just won't be able to see it.
A couple of Cup drivers are seeing double duty this weekend at the California Speedway. Ken Schrader and David Green ran in Saturday's Winston West Auto Club 200. Question is, do the actual race conditions experienced by Schrader and Green give them an edge for this afternoon's Winston Cup race? We posed that question yesterday to pole sitter David Green.
You know, I think it's already showed up a little bit. Our Cup car's really doing well, and we've been able to learn a lot. And then thus learned a lot to come over here and run the Winston West car. But these cars are identical. Same guys built them, Billy Hess, K-Tech Motors, and, you know, thanks also to Goodyear running the same race tires. So, you know, it's not a whole lot of difference.
And Robbie Gordon isn't too happy about crashing the Coors car during Friday's practice session. Gordon was taken to a local hospital. He will miss the Cup race this afternoon and did miss the IROC race. Greg Sachs will pilot the number 40 ride this afternoon, while Bobby Labonte subbed in the IROC race. In just about 4 hours, more than 100,000 fans will fill this brand new facility in Southern California for the inaugural running of the California 500 presented by Napa. Standing by with the inaugural pole sitter Joe Nemechek right now is Tyler Potter. Take it away, Tyler.
Okay, Phil, thanks a lot. Of course, we've got Joe Nemechek with us right now. And, Joe, you already had a pole on the Busch Series this year. Now you've got your first ever Winston Cup pole. It's got to feel great.
It just feels awesome, to have Team Sabco, our Bell South Chevrolet Monte Carlo up front. We've been knocking on the door the last few weeks, and we finally got one today. Just wish my wife and son John Hunter was here, but looking forward to a great day.
Tell us about the run. You said you were happy with the way you went through turns 1 and 2, but 3 and 4, you said maybe could have gone a little bit faster.
Yeah, I really got through 1 and 2 the best I've been all day long, and I let off just a little bit too early getting in 3 and gave up some time getting in. Had to get back in it earlier than I had been, and it pushed a little bit, but it was good enough to get us here in the front. Just can't say enough for Tony Glover and this whole Bell South crew. They're just doing an awesome job. They keep getting better and better. Motor shops build me some awesome motors, and it just takes a whole package to go fast.
Okay, Joe, congratulations. Thanks for joining us. And let's take a look back now at how Joe did it, as well as the rest of the qualifying action. Terry Labonte was the first car out in Friday's round 1 qualifying. His lap of 39.579 seconds gave him the early pole. 15 cars later, Darrell Waltrip knocked Labonte out of the top spot by posting a speed of 182.209 miles per hour. But DW's reign didn't last long, as Ernie Irvin took his Haviland Thunderbird to the front, getting around the 2-mile oval in 39.360 seconds. It appeared last week's winner would grab the headlines for the second straight week. That was until Nemechek, who was the second to last car out, blazed the California Speedway with an average speed of 183.015 miles per hour. Nemechek becomes the 11th different driver to win a pole in the Winston Cup Series this year.
Well, last night, the Craftsman Truck Series drivers were tackling familiar ground at the Bristol Motor Speedway. But no matter how many times you go there, the short Tennessee bull ring doesn't get any easier. So far this season, defending series champ Ron Hornaday has had more than his fair share of troubles on the track. But after starting on the pole for the Load Handler 200, the Napa driver quickly showed he had the truck to beat. The high banks of Bristol played their usual pranks on many of the drivers in this event. In all, there were 11 caution flags on the night. One of the worst ones involved Randy Renfro in the 41. He was transported to a local hospital with what could be a broken collarbone. With Hornaday dominating up front, the battle for the rest of the top 5 positions was a dogfight. Rookie Boris Seg continued his string of impressive runs lately by holding down second in the first half of the race. But it all fell apart in the second half as the 44 machine got way loose and eventually wound up 18th. With Sed gone, rookie points leader Kenny Irwin moved into second, but he was the victim of a late race caution that moved him back to 26th in the final rundown. That left points leader Rich Bickle as the runner-up when the final yellows set the field up for a 3-lap dash to the checkers. But like he'd done all night, Hornaday easily pulled away on the restart, leading flag to flag for his second win of the season, moving him to 10th in the point standings and giving himself a birthday present just one day late. Well, that's all the time we have for this segment of Inside NASCAR. But when we come back, Ned will rejoin you from the shops of Penske Racing. And as we leave you for this break, here's a look at the remainder of the starting lineup for the inaugural California 500. Enjoy your racing Sunday.
Roger Penske is one of the most influential and dynamic people in all of motorsports. Of course, he owns the Miller Lite Fords, which are driven by Rusty Wallace in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. He also owns 2 CART Series teams, and his Penske Motorsports, which is traded on one of the stock exchanges, owns 4 speedways: the Michigan Speedway, the North Carolina Motor Speedway, the Nazareth Speedway, and the brand new California Speedway, which opens this weekend. And that might be one of the things that he's most proud of. And while at the Michigan Speedway this past weekend, we talked to Roger about that. Roger, certainly you've done a lot in motorsports and in the business world as well. And the new track in California, does that rank pretty high among your accomplishments?
Well, Ned, I think that, it gave me a chance to maybe execute 30 years of racing as a driver, as a car owner, as a track owner, and basically as a businessman. What could I do, or what could our team of people do to really execute a new bar in motorsports? And the California market was one that all of the teams wanted to be in as far as to compete. We did with our cars, our customers. And that really, to me, is probably one of the biggest challenges. But as I see it just a week away, and I was there yesterday, and to see the team of people that have gone together, and this is not just the people that are in California, but it's all the people within our company have had a thumbprint on it. Les Richter, obviously, was a key guy to help us get through some of the bumpy issues with the state and the community. But I'd have to say, if we have a good race next week, it'd be just right at the top.
It has to make you feel good to have started from the ground. Now, this Michigan Speedway, of course, you bought it after it had been built and made tremendous improvements here, but that one, you nursed it from the start.
Well, just to put it in perspective, back 20-some years ago when we came here to Michigan, we paid $3.5 million for this track, and to think we're going to spend 40 times that in California, it is from the ground. And I tell you, if you went on that site with Richter and Walt Zarnicki and myself, but Les was driving a Cadillac, I said, Les, you're going to ruin this car driving around here. We saw tires and coke ovens and blast furnaces and just rubble, rubble, rubble. I said, we might be stepping a lot farther, a little higher than we can make it. But today, I'd have to say that it's amazing. This track here at Michigan certainly has kind of grown. It's evolved as the sport has. Someone said, well, what about Ontario? Well, this track had 16,000 seats. Now it's got over 100,000 seats. The infield with over 3,000 vehicles. That wasn't the case 10 or 15 years ago. People like yourself have helped take the sport professionally, certainly from the standpoint of competition, the drivers, your son. Look at the Jeff Gordons and the Wallaces you got in the air, and I'm sure, but you've got a whole group of these young drivers, new sponsors. Look at the mechanics and the detail and preparation. All of this has made this sport so strong, and we've been able to take advantage of that by going to California and taking that momentum and build a new track.
Now, I'm sure that you got a lot of plans for there. Of course, Winston Cup will be the first thing you'll have there. Will be this weekend. And what are other plans for the track?
Well, we'll start out with IROC, certainly, and Winston Cup on the 22nd. Then we come back in September with a kart race. That'll be a great race out there. A lot of interest in California. Long Beach, as you know, and Laguna Seca have created a lot of open-wheel type fans. Then we come back in October. We got a Busch, we have a Winston West, and we have certainly the Craftsman truck race. So that's going to be interesting to see that trucks run on a 2-mile speedway. That's going to be an interesting weekend.
Now, a lot of us that know at least a little about all the things that you have going on, we wonder, how in the world do you do it?
Well, I got good people. I think that, I get a lot of credit for it, but at the end of the day, we've just over the years been able to hire and attract and keep, good people. And I think that's one of the things that concerns me a little bit in the racing business today, that people are pretty portable. They go with money, they can roll their toolbox down the street and it turns in right. Today they go to work or go left. And I think, overall, we got to get loyalty. And by doing that, you're going to have a better result. In my case, we build industrial businesses, our automotive business, certainly the tracks are a byproduct of racing. So I would say that you can't run a good racetrack without a guy like a Gene Haskett, or a Greg Penske in California, or someone else in the organization. And all our people have been outstanding over the years. Our drivers have been, our crew chiefs. And at the end of the day, it's, TEAM, it's people, that's it.
You have taken your corporation, the Speedway Penske Motorsports, public. That's something relatively new in our sport.
Well, I've had the experience with the Detroit Diesel Corporation, which we took public 4 years ago. it's interesting, isn't it? You watch it, you watch your stock price every day. Bruton's doing this, we're doing that, Bill France is doing this, so it's another race, I guess. But what it's done, it's given us the capital, the public capital, to reinvest back in the business. I think if you look at Bruton, you look at Bill France, the money that we've been able to attract in these public offerings have gone right back into the sport. You know, you don't build a California Speedway by going to the bank and getting a mortgage. You just can't afford it. You can't build a Texas Speedway. You can't do the things that Daytona's doing without having that kind of capital. So I see it as a vehicle, and we hit it at the right time because the stock market at 7,700, the Dow Jones, it's at a time when there's a lot of capital available for attractive businesses, and certainly the notoriety of NASCAR and auto racing in total is taken us to a point where we can capitalize on from the standpoint of getting outside dollars to spend. Look, you want to be in the steel business? You want to be in the automobile business? You want to be in the motorsports business? Or do you want to be in the entertainment business? I think we're in the entertainment business. We're getting the multiples that go along with that. But what we have to do, we got to keep executing and being sure that we remember one thing, we got to remember that fan.
Hi, this is Jeff Hammond, Crew Chief of the Parts America Chevrolet. This week we're going to talk about spring rubbers and how they affect the handling of a race car. During the course of a race, a lot of times you hear somebody say, he pulled a spring rubber out of the rear spring. Well, what makes that work and why do we do it? Come here and I'll show you how. John's going to help me here with our chassis dyno spring rater. He's going to show us how we rate a spring, for example, this 1,800 pound spring without a rubber, and we'll show you what happens after we add the rubber and how we tune a race car during the course of a race with a simple little piece of rubber in these coils. Okay, there you go. All right, thank you, John. So as you can see, we start with a spring without the rubber and it rates approximately 1,800 pounds. But as we add a piece of rubber, you can see it increases the spring rate up to 1,933 pounds. So for example, when we're running at Charlotte, and we start during the daylight and end the dark, the chassis may change, so therefore, by pulling a piece of spring rubber out, we can affect the handling of the race car. We can go from a loose condition to a tight condition, or vice versa. So these spring rubbers are very crucial as far as handling the race car at any racetrack that we go to.
There are a lot of brother combinations in NASCAR racing, and one of those is the Sadler brothers, Hermie and Elliott. They both participate in the NASCAR Busch Series. And recently, Tyler Potter spent some time with them just before the race at South Boston.
Well, part of our day with the Sadlers starts here at the race shop. Now, the shop used to be in Richmond, Virginia, but now it's here in South Hill. Tell us how enjoyable it's been for you. I'm sure it's made a lot less stress for you having it down here.
No question. That was the main goal behind bringing it here and having it adjacent to my car dealership here, was to have everything together at one place where I can kind of tend to things up there and kind of be a part of what's going on back here. So a lot of race fans don't get to see it, but a lot of work and a lot of long hours in these race shops getting prepared for these races, especially with the schedule the Busch cars have been on. So just being able to be here and stick my head in every now and then and be a part of what's going on has been great. We're now in the GM showroom at Sadler Auto Center. On this side we carry Chevrolet, Oldsmobiles, Cadillac, Geos, and we also added the Honda line a couple years back. And want all the inside NASCAR viewers to know that when I'm not racing, I'm here at Sadler Auto Center selling cars. Tried to sell you a Honda when you were here a little while ago, but somebody else got you ahead of time, but we'll get you next time.
I would have taken you up on that, believe me. I love Hondas. I just got a Civic 3 months back, but drove about 2 hours to get mine, but I would have driven 2 hours up here to get it from you.
Well, you'll know next time. We'll catch up with you next time, and just really enjoy having everything here together. I enjoy the car business, and it's a people business, and something I've always loved to do. Well, we're spending a day in South Hill, Virginia. We dumped Tyler off and picked up my brother Elliott. Y'all know Elliott.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
He's auditioning for a job on Inside NASCAR, so Tyler's out, Elliott's in. We're going to slip across town here to Brian's Steakhouse and have some lunch and see how those people over there are doing, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Well, yeah, I've been watching Tyler on Inside NASCAR all the time. He looks like he's got the cupcake job with the company, so I'm trying to do all I can do to try to see if I can get on that deal he's been on.
Well, we're at Brian's Steakhouse, and going to take my favorite Inside NASCAR guys in for the best lunch in South Hill, so y'all come on in and let's get a bite to eat. Thank you. right.
Looks good, don't it?
Is it neat for you guys to spend time together? I'm sure when the season's going on full swing, it's hard to get together, especially being at home. It must be kind of neat coming back here, but is it something you guys really look forward to?
It is, because now that I've moved to Charlotte, we hardly ever get to see each other, and on race weekends, we're always so busy. He's doing his thing, and I'm doing my thing. We're trying to both get our cars as competitive as we can, so it's always like a business-like sense. So it's good whenever I can come home, or if he ever gets spare time to come to Charlotte, we go play golf, or go mess around the lake, or do a little odds and ends, and it's no pressure. We can act ourselves and just kind of have a good time.
All right, guys, I'm stuffed. I tell you, that lunch was great, but I have no clue what you guys have me doing now. I know we're at a golf course, but Hermie, I'm not going to ask what's up.
Well, you're the one that suggested we have cheesecake for dessert, so now we got to get some exercise in.
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry. This way. Be the ball.
First thing you got to learn how to do is to thank the crowd for the applause, you know, when you make a shot.
All right.
So you just got to go.
Oh! Not a problem. Have an
I
on.
apologize for Southfield Country Club for this divot. Here's Tyler's ball for the first hole, 6 of them.
This time, Tyler, let's try to hit it past the ladies' tees. We hadn't yet made it to the ladies' tees. You see that off in the distance a little bit. We hadn't made it. We're going to try it again. Look at that. Yes!
You got to be pleased with that.
It flew right in between them. I'm getting killed. I'm not none too pretty at bowling. That's awful. Nothing too pretty.
The shoes look great, actually.
The shoes are good. I kind of like the green.
I'm gonna trade them.
I think y'all are more in the retro old timey with the Velcro deal.
I've seen Dave Marcus racing with
Yeah, that's right.
This is my racing attire for the rest of the year.
He's bringing the Velcro back in, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, still got one. Come on, hang it.
Look at that.
Thank you. No pressure, no pressure. Uh-oh. 2 in a row. Man, it's coming on here at the end.
All right, it's all said and done in the bowling alley, and guess who won? 145 to 132 over Hermie. I'm not sure what you had, Elliot. Tell us what your score was.
107, carried to 8, something like that.
Well,
not enough.
The bottom line is I made up for my poor showing on the golf link. So, but tell us what's going on tonight, guys.
Well, we're going to sign autographs over here at a local place, Steve's American Cafe, and then after that, one of our good buddies, Don Cox, is going to put on a little show for everybody here in South Boston. So maybe we need to scoot on over there.
No, we had a fun day. We enjoyed it.
A couple of great guys. That looked like a lot of fun. Still to come, the mailbox, and also we'll look at preparation on race day with the Ford number 21 team right after this.
We run the car on Friday and Saturday really hard, getting it qualified and getting ready for the race. And so when Sunday morning rolls around, there's a lot of maintenance that has to be done on the car from the running you did over the weekend already. But then again, you have to look at everything to prepare the car for 500 miles.
We're at Penske South Racing on the day that Earl Barbin, who is the truck driver and also the jackman for the Miller Lite team, is getting ready to head to California. Much preparation in getting ready to go, and also a lot of preparation on race morning, getting ready for the race. And Phil Wers has this story on the Wood brothers, Citgo Ford, getting ready for the race.
The day starts the same as every other Winston Cup team, waiting until 7 a.m. when the garage gates officially open and the teams all begin pre-race preparations. The Wood brothers have been a part of this sport for almost half a century, so race day setup is nothing new, but every week provides different challenges. Eddie and Linwood are the primary decision makers come race day, and for the hours leading up to the race, the checklist is the Bible on Sunday. The checklist is a detailed step-by-step outline of what needs to be done to make the sit-go Ford go.
To make Michael comfortable, 500 miles.
We have about 20 people up, every weekend, and everybody has got something to do, and they go do their thing, and one guy's responsible for this or that, and he is the man for that, and he'll go check it, and you don't worry about it. We got a checklist, and we go over that. And when you get ready to go on the line, you just look at it, make sure everybody's checked whatever's supposed to be checked, and then you get into the deal. Like this morning, we're making one spring change and a spoiler change. So after everything is checked over and done, the car's back on the ground, ready to roll out, then you make your changes, and then it's ready to race.
While the car gets prepped in the garage, the pit cart goes out to pit row before 8 a.m. The pit cart is supplied with equipment necessary for the Wood brothers to keep Michael Waltrip's day at Pocono a smooth one.
Got a compartment over here toward the air gun. I'll get those out in just a minute and oil them and grease them. We've got a TV where we watch the race as it's going on. We've got a monitor from NASCAR that gives a rundown on the positions of the cars each lap. And your other pit support stuff, the hoses.
One of the items the crew set up on Sunday morning on the pit cart is something that looks like a big fishing pole. What it actually is a pit camera, and it allows the teams to see if they're making time or losing time in the pits. It's also a good way to say hi to everybody in the morning. Hi, everybody. How many tires do you guys bring out here?
We'll probably have 9 sets in the pit today.
What are you writing down? What numbers? What do they mean?
These codes, what we do is get the codes off of each tire and try to match them up, so we'll try to have a matched up set. Sometimes it means a lot and sometimes it don't, but we try to get the codes off the back of the tire, off the front of the tire, and match them up with the serial number.
Of course, at 10 a.m. Sunday morning, the DSS dish comes in real handy because we can all watch Inside NASCAR on TNN. To get to the point where it's almost automatic, it becomes routine. The Wood brothers have been racing so long that does it just become habit forming after a while?
Well, it is. I mean, we do the same thing every Sunday morning. I mean, the same guys work on the same parts of the car, and Michael and I will discuss what we want to start the race, tire pressure or wedge or this or that. And every morning it's about the same thing. It's just a different place.
At 10:50, the team makes final pre-inspection adjustments to the sit-go Ford. Then about a half hour later, the checklist is complete and Eddie Wood disposes of it properly. A minute later, Michael Waltrip's car is ready for inspection, and it's wheeled out of the garage for NASCAR's white glove test. NASCAR goes over every car the exact same way, making measurements, checking every inch of every car so no one team will have an advantage over another. But we did ask someone to help provide just perhaps a slight advantage from above. Father, we've been shadowing the Michael Waltrip team all morning long to see what they do before the race. Would you mind blessing the car for them?
Okay. And that's a good blessing on it, okay?
Okay. Good luck in the race.
Okay, thank you very kindly.
Thank you. At 11:48, the Wood Brothers sit-go Ford entry is ready to go racing. Now you have to live with the decisions you made for the last 5 hours.
There's a lot of stuff that goes on Sunday morning. Those guys work their tail off right up till 12:30. And, right now we're less than an hour away from the race, and they're still rolling them through inspection. And those guys got to get them a bite to eat and get out there on pit road and be ready to pit the race car when the race starts. So my hat's off to the whole crowd on the sit-go team because they just work so hard.
By 1 o'clock, Michael Waltrip has his game face on. A final word of encouragement from wife Buffy and some final instructions from Eddie Wood. And the sit-go Ford Thunderbird is ready to race. 6 hours of pre-race prepping is done.
Well, thanks, Phil. We need to take a short break right now. Still to come, the mailbox and lots more, so don't go away. We'll be right back. The Inside NASCAR mailbox is brought to you by Miller Lite. Our question today is from Greg Foster from Crown Point, Indiana. What determines the placement of the exhaust outlets?
Hi, I'm Joe Ruttman, the driver of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series number 80, sponsored by LCI. Craig wrote in a question about the exhaust system, and one of the things that determines, I think, the placement of the exhaust out the left versus out both sides is on the short track, there's a lot of body roll in the chassis, and you run softer springs, and there's a problem that you might bottom the exhaust out. But on a super speedway, the engine builder determines that maybe it makes a little more power with them out both sides. And he says, hey, let's get them out both sides because maybe 5 horsepower might make a difference. So kind of an interesting thing. I never thought about that before, but thanks for writing in.
If you have a question for the Inside NASCAR mailbox, write to us at Inside NASCAR. Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Lite jacket and a cap and shirt from Chase Authentics, the authentic trackside apparel of NASCAR.
It's been somewhat of an up-and-down season for Rusty Wallace and the Miller Lite team in 1997. They have one win, but they also have some DNFs. That's something that you don't want. They hope to turn that around this weekend at the New California Speedway. We'll be right back with more on this edition of Inside NASCAR right after this. Rusty Wallace is not only a race driver, but he also is an airplane enthusiast. We've done stories on that in the past here on Inside NASCAR. Another airplane enthusiast is Jack Roush, who owns 3 cars in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. Stephanie Boyd-Durner has his story about airplanes.
There's no question that Jack Roush owns cars can fly on the racetrack. What you may not know, though, is that Jack Roush himself can fly faster than any of them. After a career spent building his racing operations into an empire, turns out Roush has an even greater passion for a different type of motorsport. He's an avid aviator, and his pride and joy is a fully restored World War II machine called the P-51 Mustang.
When I bought the Mustang about 4 years ago, at that point, I was not a pilot. I could fly that airplane, but I didn't have a piece of paper that said that, Jack, you could legally go fly an airplane without having another pilot on board. There's only one seat in that airplane with controls on it. I mean, if you're not a pilot, you can't fly that airplane.
Well, that was not an option, so Roush took a speed course in flying. Meanwhile, his arsenal of airplanes was growing. In his hangar near Detroit, Michigan, Roush not only keeps his corporate plane and the P-51, he's also got a 1947 J3 Cub and is completing restoration on the ex-military craft called the AT-6.
Was it an instant love affair with aviation, or was it when you got in the cockpit, when you got in the pilot's seat? When was it that you knew, man, I love this stuff?
I've got scars all over my fingers, you know, from where when I was 5, 6 years old, I used razor blades to cut these little balsa wood and tissue paper airplanes and glue them together. I was probably sniffing glue without even realizing what I was doing before it was fashionable. But I had always liked aviation. I thought that I would like to be an aeronautical engineer as a youngster.
What is it that appeals to you the most? Because obviously you're a gearhead kind of guy. You're known for your engineering. Is it the restoring these things, or is it the flying? Which appeals to you most?
Well, you know, I like fixing things, and to be able to fix these old airplanes exactly the way they were and share history, part of the history that they were involved with not only the people that were there, but with people of my generation and people of the generation younger than me, has been really exciting because we've been able to span that information and get the experience and the knowledge of what had happened in this era to 2 generations through the work. So that's been exciting, and they're just unbelievable to fly.
And that's why he does it every chance he gets. Just last month, he took the star of the hit TV series Coach and part-time race car driver Craig T. Nelson up for a spin.
Well, I think when Jack's looking at the map, we could be just a little bit of trouble.
A little bit of trouble.
got to shake your hand. You're a hell of a man.
No.
I wouldn't sit back there and put up with that, I don't think.
The sound of that engine and what this little plane does is capable of doing its agility. And then when Jack landed it and he opened the cockpit, the canopy, and you get that aroma of that engine, it's just, man, great.
This actual airplane was a Canadian Air Force airplane that I suspect does not have a military combat history. But the airplane that it's painted like, the Old Crow, the airplane with the serial number that's on the tail, 4450, was Bud Anderson's, Colonel Bud Anderson's airplane in World War II. He was decorated for shooting down something over 18 German fighter airplanes in Western Europe, and he was distinguished later by having been the leader for the fellow who set the sound barrier, broke the sound barrier the first time, General Chuck Yeager.
Roush says Anderson and Yeager are still around, and that Anderson often flies his P-51 in air shows around the country for old military flyers. He says those guys understand the passion he feels for the aircraft, a passion he says surpasses all others.
This airplane, its restoration, my getting ready to fly it, you know, beginning to understand how to find people to share the challenges of maintaining and upgrading the systems in it has for sure been the biggest, bigger than going through college, bigger than getting my first job, bigger than winning my first motorsport championship, wherever it was. It is the neatest thing that I've done in my life.
From 1958 to June 12, 1988, the 2.6-mile Riverside International Raceway road course was a mainstay on the Winston Cup calendar. In that final event 9 years ago, Rusty Wallace, driving the Kodiak Blue Max Pontiac for Raymond Beadle, took the final checkers flown in the Budweiser 400. From 1980 through 1986, Riverside played host to the Winston Cup season finale. And no other championship chase in the 80s had more excitement than the 1982 battle between Darrell Waltrip, he was driving the number 11 Mountain Dew Buick, and Bobby Allison driving for Dygaard Racing. They started 1-2. Waltrip was on the pole. He had a 22-point advantage at the start of the race. But it was tire trouble, which spelled disaster for Allison. He was driving the number 88 Gatorade car, and numerous pit stops dropped him to 16th in the final running order. It was a terrible day for Terry Labonte. He suffered multiple injuries in a crash on lap 94. He was driving the Billy Hagan Buick. Another exciting moment happened when Jeff Bodine went sliding to avoid Derek Cope. Up front, Tim Richmond was the dominator that day, driving a J.D. Stacy Buick. It was his second career Winston Cup win. But with a third, Darrell Waltrip won the 1982 Winston Cup Championship driving for Junior Johnson. In 1983, the title once again came down to a battle between Allison and Waltrip. This time it was Allison taking his first and only Winston Cup championship by 47 points over Waltrip, who spun while leading. That took away all hopes of his third Winston Cup title in a row. With Waltrip out of the picture, Bill Elliott took the lead and then went on to win his first career Winston Cup victory.
Here's what we have coming up for you next week right here on TNN on Inside NASCAR.
What started out as a bright rookie run in the NASCAR Busch Series for Tim Bender ended in a qualifying wreck at Bristol. Matt Kenseth was named to replace him and has since racked up consistent runs. You'll meet the rookie pilot. And we'll also continue our conversation with motorsports magnate Roger Penske, who next week will talk about his Winston Cup team and the future of NASCAR racing. All this and more next week on Inside NASCAR.
Fantasy sports has the largest contingent of fans playing their game of all of those that are out there. Now, last fall, during their fall challenge, they had two winners that worked together to win the $10,000 first prize. And they are the subject of this week's Inside NASCAR Profile.
Greg Garrison and Mike Paskey from Ohio are huge Winston Cup racing fans. Well, let's make that huge, rich Cup fan. You see, they won $10,000 for winning the Fall 96 Fantasy Cup racing game. The game allows owners like Greg and Mike to select 8 drivers for every race using an imaginary $10 million salary cap to pick or draft your starting team. You can change every week as long as you don't go over budget. It paid off for Greg and Mike last fall. They got a free trip to this year's Pocono 500 and earned them the cover with our own Ned Jarrett on the Fall 97 rule book. So how did these guys beat out 3,500 other entrants?
The hardest thing was you really can't play favorites. I mean, it killed us to pick up Earnhardt and Gordon, but sometimes if they're going to go up, if their money value is going to increase, you have to pick them up.
And obviously, it pays to be a fan, but you have to do a little research as well.
You got to know which drivers do better on which track, and all you can do is prepare your team to give them the chance to do well, but then after that, it's a little bit of luck, that they're going to finish the race.
So we're saying it's probably about 25% strategy, 25% skill, and 50% luck.
With about 7,000 teams playing this spring, Greg and Mike have definitely been holding their own again.
We were as low as, what, 500?
547.
And we are currently in 5th place. And right now our roster is Mark Martin, Ricky Rudd, Jeff Burton. Should we be giving this out?
I don't think so.
That's okay, guys, because we have your picks from Pocono, and here's how you did. Jeff Burton finished 2nd, not bad. Mark Martin, he finished 4th. Derek Cope managed 11th, then it gets a little iffy. Sterling Marlin ended up 15th, Ricky Rudd 21st, Johnny Benson 27th, Bill Elliott 32nd, and pole sitter Bobby Hamilton ended up 39th.
I don't know, just play it and get a little bit of experience with it, and because it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of arguments going back and forth, and do it with the team. It doesn't cost quite as much, that type of thing. So it's just a lot of fun.
If you're interested in playing, the number to call is 1-800-877-RACE.
Well, our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show, and our thanks to all the folks here at Penske South Racing for allowing us to show you around their facilities. You join us again here on TNN for more on Inside NASCAR.